Hello again, welcome back to another 3 Studio Max tutorial. This time we'll cover position constraints. So let's go ahead and get started. So at first I'll just create a box. I'll set this to cube and draw out one. And if you remember from the other tutorials, to duplicate something you can hold shift left click and just drag out to the side. Click OK for copy. Or you have the other option of control and then V. Does the same exact thing, copy and then go ahead and move it. So for what we'll do here is just show and demonstrate what a basic position constraint does, and then I'll go on just give a little hint as to how you might use it in a character rig. So first you select the object that is to be driven by the constraint itself, and for this instance I want this middle box to have that happen. And then I go to animation, constraints, position constraint. So I left click, the dotted line shows up saying pick something, and then I'm just grabbing this box 2 here on the side, and I'm left clicking. You can see what happens right away is the first cube I had selected jumps over to the newly selected box 2, and that's because the position constraint kicked in essentially. And sometimes you want that to happen, other times you want to keep it at its original starting location, and to do that you just go ahead and click this checkbox here saying keep initial offset. So I click that and it's right back to where it started from. So also with this initial box selected and in the motion tab up here, you can see under position that position constraint has been added to the position list. And down here it says target and then weight. So it's saying the target right now is box 2, which is this one. So it's saying that this box is position constraint to box 2. And it's important just to know where that information lives in case you're trying to debug problems later on. So now, what exactly happens when you position constraint something? The object that has a constraint on it can no longer move. Its position is now locked by that constraint. So I can't move it in the XYZ, but I can still rotate, I can still scale. But its position itself is locked. Now for the other object, the driver of that object, I can do anything I want still. So I can position up and down, and you can see here that it's following, that the initial box is following that new one. If I am to rotate it though, I can rotate that other cube, but the other box does not follow its rotation. That's from the orientation constraint that I covered last week. Also, I can still scale this box, and again, no data is transferred to this other box. So position stays even after I rotate or scale the object. Okay, so let's reset back a little bit here. Another cool thing you can do is actually have this object controlled by multiple position constraints. So let's say I have this box here, and I also have this other box over to the side, and I want to keep this one always in the center of the two. So I go back to clicking this one because this is the one I want to have driven by the other box. And I go up to animation, constraints, position constraint, and again the dotted line shows up. Go ahead and left click on that, and now you can see that it has jumped once again to the center of both of these. Now if keep initial offset is turned on, your position will not be 100% 50-50, so you can go ahead and check that off for this point. Okay, and now in this list here, we're still in the motion tab, position section, and then position constraint. You can see the target now is box 2 and box 3. And this target weight down here, it was locked out before, but now it's 50% here and 50% here. So what happens is when I move this box, you can see that it's no longer fully moving at a 1-to-1 with that original cube, because it's now also getting data from this new box that we assigned to it. So you can always have it in the center between the two objects' positions, which is kind of neat. Okay, so now we'll move on. I'll just make a very basic bone rig. It kind of approximates what an arm might look like for a character rig. So I'm going over here to the top view, going to animation, and then down to bone tools. Just a quick easy way of making the bones. So I'm clicking create bone, and these settings should work for the scale. If not, you can always change that later. I'll go ahead and go over to my snaps toggle, right click on it, see if grid points are checkboxed, and they are, and then I'll turn it on. So you can see these little crosshairs on the grid, and I'll know exactly where my bones will end up. So I'm clicking. So this first one can act almost like a shoulder joint, let's just say this next click is an elbow, and maybe this third one can act as our wrist. And then I'm right clicking to finish creating of the joints. And now you can see here bones are still activated again, so if I right click one more time, it'll deactivate that. Okay, so we have 3 bones, but no way to control it just yet. So we'll take care of that with a high IK solver, and I'll go more into detail on rigging at a later time, but I'll just show you the basics of this as well. So with the shoulder joint selected, I'll go to Animation, IK Solvers, High IK Solver, and I'll click the object we have representing our wrist. So you can now see this little crosshairing locator essentially popping up. And this allows me to easily drive multiple bone objects, and in this instance it's acting kind of like an arm would. And now we can use a position constraint to control this object if we wanted to. So say this was all hidden inside your character's arm, you don't want to have to start searching around for these hidden objects when you can make a nice control curve to handle everything for you. So I'm going over the splines, go ahead and make a circle. Just go ahead and drag that out and right click. And then over here for rendering, you can say enable in viewport. And now it turns in almost like into a polygon object, which is quite handy. Another handy feature I'll show you is the align. So if I hit Alt and A and click the IK here, you can see it jumps right to it. And then I can also tell it to match its orientations if I needed to. Or I can apply, and then I can also just rotate it. Okay. And scale. So now we can act like this is outside of our character's geometry. So it's an easy locator to find to move the rig around. So first I'll just go ahead and freeze this real fast. Say yes. And now I'll use the power of our position constraint. So this is what will be driven by this. So I'm selecting the IK, I'm saying animation, constraint, position constraint, and then I'm clicking the circle. So now what I can do is move this control object and have it follow and drive the IK handle, which is great. So you can put all your animation data on this control object opposed to on the rig itself or on the IK itself, and it controls it just like that. So I hope this was handy. I hope you learned something. So please subscribe or comment and like, and go ahead and leave me suggestions for other tutorials you might like to see, and I'll definitely get back to that. So thanks. Bye.